Body of water is different for your electronics, and I'll lower my jig or my spoon or whatever I'm using down there and get it in the sonar to where I can just barely see it, just so it looks like a heartbeat down there, but not solid. I can jig it and see it down there. If you turn the sensitivity up too much, you might miss a fish coming across the bottom, where the bottom's not going to rise up on you. But this is the way I fish out here, and little bait and knock, all the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. I'll jig pretty aggressively, kind of like that. And when the fish appear on the graph, I'll kind of slow down, or I'll just stay aggressive. And you got to kind of read the fish what they want for that day. Sometimes I'll slow down, and 99.9% of the time, you start a motion upward like this. And if that fish is following it right with your graph and staying tight, boom, he usually hits right there. Sometimes you pick them up off the bottom 8 feet. Usually when you get them that high and they came that far, they're going to come and hit your bait. Sometimes if you're too aggressive, they come there and they go away. So you got to kind of read the fish what they want tomorrow. Low light condition early in the morning, we get set up out there by 8:30 or so. You're going to be pretty aggressive. You're going to have 2 or 3 fish come in, hopefully. And if you get one up high and one down low, just keep raising it up, and it's going to be more of like a competition. It's going to be like wolves down there. You should catch one of those.
I get the urge to stop when I see that, and I got to just push on and keep
going.
Yeah,
you got to keep going, and sometimes even reel a little bit like that, and all of a sudden you'll just feel a thunk, and set the hook and keep reeling. Well, that's the key. Keep the tension on the rod.
If you see them break off, you're coming up and you see the fish break off, you got to open that bail or free spool, whatever you have, and it's got to hit the bottom. And when it hits the bottom, you click it over. I mean, everything is in a split second here. And you pound the bottom, and then you pick it up, and they come right down to it. And a lot of times, before you ever get it off the bottom, they're on it. Or just as you twitch it a few times, they grab it. Or you start them all over. You might have to do that 4 or 5 times before you get them to go. And the other thing, also, if you miss that fish, even if you got a camera and you can see the bait came off of it, or you see that he took the bait off of your spoon or your jig and wrap or anything you're using, you set it and oh geez, I missed it. Everybody does this, right? The worst mistake you can make in your life. You free spool it right to the bottom again, and you pound it right in the bottom, and you pick it up. A lot of times they get the minnow, they went, whoa, that tastes good. I didn't get them all. Whoom! And they grab it, whether there's bait on it or there's no bait. But if you reeled it up and you went, oh my gosh, I still got my bait, you could see the fish still on your camera, or you're still seeing it on your electronics. That fish isn't going to be there by the time that thing hits the bottom again. So the worst thing you can do when you miss a fish is to reel it up. They'll take a plain spoon, they'll take it with or without bait after they get that aggressive at time. And also, we told them to pick up some of that Gulp spray, or we got the bottles. Yesterday, the guy in my tent was one of my sponsors, and it was one of his first times out here ever fishing, probably ice fishing, period. He just thought, why Gulp? Yeah, come on, Mark. And I was spraying it on it, and I said, I'm going to spray this on mine. And he goes, I said, you want it? No, it's messy. He's not a fisherman. He wants to learn, so he drops down, and I got the camera down there. Yesterday, every time we seen a fish would go right by his lure, right over to mine. And I'd either hook him, or he'd bite, or I'd miss him, or whatever. And then a lot of times they'll go over to his. When mine wasn't in the water, they'd go, and then he'd get a hit. Before about 5 o'clock, he reached over and finally grabbed the Gulp spray, and now he was keeping up with me. Where they'd come in, and it was a 50-50 chance whoever they came to, but all day long, I'd say 90% of the time they came to me. So that's how much difference it made. Well, last year during the class, Tom, we were using just the spray at the end on just lures, because the fish were biting so good, you can see them down there. You didn't need, if you had bait on there, you were just constantly pulling fish up, and then we put Gulp minnow heads on. That didn't slow them down. So some of the guys, well, Jeff, where's Jeff Zeke? Yeah. You know how bad it was. It was crazy, you know. By the time it was over, between the pro staff and all the students, had 329 walleyes that were iced and let go, or some were kept, and had
felt
lake
like you were
trout
cheating.
and a pile of whitefish and what, 20-some smallmouth, couple northerns. So I mean, that was probably someday that we're never going to see again, but who knows? It could be tomorrow or the next day. So, you know, just but those are the little things that we do make the big differences. So look at the rods that Mike and Mark were and talk about how Mike hooked the minnow, and using all the little pieces too of it if you want to. You know, squirting some gulp on it, making sure that swivels on it, make sure you got a small snap on it. You know, you want to use stuff that doesn't outbalance that lure too. If you have too big a snap on it, going, oh, I just got a penny snap, it takes away from how that thing flutters down there. You know, and what I noticed yesterday, what was kind of cool, I seen these shad dying yesterday, and I thought it was my lure. I seen it, all of a sudden I looked away and I looked back on the camera and I was like, my lure's moving and I'm not even moving it, what's going on? You know, and I jerked on my rod and it flashed right beside it. It was a shad. It was about the same size as that Sidewinder you guys seen. I was using a Sidewinder at the time because that's what I usually use during the middle of the day, and or you know, something shiny lure in the middle of the day anyhow. But I seen it like that, and my Sidewinder, when I picked it up like that and let it flutter down with just a minnow head on it or a piece of minnow, it looked just like I showed my sponsor and the lieutenant. I said, look at this, they look just the same. Look at that, pulled it up right by that shad, and they both look the same. So, you know, you can learn a lot from, you know, what was going on there.
The other thing you see is you guys got some hooks, treble hooks in your bags too. So you might change some of the baits, some of the hooks out.
You got red ones in there?
Red ones.
Yeah.
There was 4s and 6s.
Ooh, wow.
Or yeah, 4s and 6s.
There were good ones there. Were they the Daiichi ones?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Got some good ones in there.
So you like the red hooks?
Yeah. The one
Yeah.
the fish do.
More than anything, you always want to make sure your hooks are good and sharp.
I kind of like blue.
Anything else?
You know,
I
we
mean, you
just-
guys got questions right
just
now?
ask them.
Ask.
Ask our questions. We're right here for you.
The only dumb question is one you don't ask.
You got it.
Talk about your camera like an aqua view. How far away from the hole you're fishing in do you usually put that
You
down?
got I found out here the water's so clear most often is it's best to come from above. And I could see an area, I estimated it after a while that I could see about probably a 25-foot circle, because I had it about 12 feet off the bottom. So it was like covering it. I mean, it covered so much I could see all the rocks. I got a new Markham camera. Got a color one and a black and white one. I'll have it out there. So if somebody wants to use one too. But on the Aqua View, you also have a tail on it. You have the tail on it, directional. Oh, boy. Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, I would put it,
Way away.
you know, just so you can barely see your, you know, the farther away you're gonna be, the better off you're gonna be.
But anybody with a camera, what I was doing, if you got a tail on your Aquaview or a Markham or whatever you have, I put it so it was straight down because it's so clear. And then that middle bar in your tent that separates them, you know, a bread twisty or the twisty that came on your cords before you unwrapped them and threw them away. That's what you use to wrap it around the bar up above, and you keep lowering it over the bar until you look at your screen and go, okay, and I can see everything clear. Take the twisty and stop it right there. And then it makes it.
Is your camera horizontal or vertical?
No, it's vertical.
Okay, so if you got it horizontal, if you tie the tail, light it.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you tie it on the tail of the thing, it'll
A
turn
lot
it.
of them know they have the sliding weight, so you can slide it, and so tip it so it'll go down.
Or look at your tail, if it's got a notch in the tail and run the